looking at an alternative that would allow us to move that substation, but there's a lot of moving parts and we don't know the final answer yet, but that's what we're hoping for. And so I'm not sure the timing on that. Jason, when do you think we'll know if that's going to happen?
And like, is there voting on that? Like, how does...
It depends on different, there's, like she said, there's multiple moving parts, so it's not just a vote
We
thing.
can't
We
just
have to
magically,
find out
yeah,
if there's
property
other property available, and that's what we're working on. 6 months, Jason? 4 months? What do you think?
Well, it's got to be done before then.
Sooner than that.
In the next 60 days.
So we'll know in the next couple months.
So is there going to be like a voting on that as well then?
Yeah, it'll be on the agenda. Yeah, it'll be on the agenda. So yeah, if you want to just watch these
The
agendas, you'll see
138Ks right 20 feet in
I
front of
know.
my house is
I know.
absolutely ridiculous.
We know. Yep, that's one of the reasons we're trying. Okay, so,
Thanks.
I guess we have a little bit of time, so I guess we can answer questions before we...
Mayor, if you want to take a poll, just stick it in with the next billing cycle. Or anything you want to get an answer to. You mail out, what, 10,000
Yeah.
bills a month. I mean, that's better than even holding a referendum.
It's not a bad suggestion. Is that possible? Jason, is there any reason that wouldn't work?
We've tried surveys with bills before. Last time we did a survey with billing process, we got 17 responses back.
17.
17.
Well, I think if the public makes an effort to get the word out that they need to return these, and you put some sort of a coupon type situation where they got to mail it back in, or they can go online somewhere to record their vote, and it actually gets put out in the public and advertised, I think you'll get a much better return on that.
What's the cost of ink?
Mr. Chairman, the vote's been made and motion made and passed.
Yeah, I tried.
Can I ask
don't
a
know that
question?
we can rule out 100% that another motion might not come forward, though. I mean, a motion's been made and passed. It's not concrete yet, in my opinion.
How's it not concrete?
Well, I am continuing to look at some things that I will be able to report on next month, and maybe based on that, we're going to maybe want to revisit it. And I'm not saying, you know, if you guys don't want to revisit it, obviously it won't happen, but I am not at liberty right now to explain what that is. But, you know, should new information come to light, I think we have to expect it.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
The Board of, or not, the Corps of Engineers has really played havoc with the bypass, and it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Heber Light Power has got an agreement with them to go through the route that we are proposing at this time.
Well, we had an environmental, what do you call it? Environmental approval? I know it's an impact study, but I'm not sure what.
It's not that depth, was it? But don't we have,
The delineation study's been done for the current route.
Yeah, and that's part of what they looked at to you know, heard people from UDOT that were saying the bypass wouldn't be able to get that. But,
And we continue to work with UDOT, and we will continue to work with UDOT.
right, it's just a different level of impact. The power lines have a smaller impact on the wetlands than a bypass would have, so that's why it's easier to get that approval. There was some comments from the County Planning Commission, I guess, that I don't know if they'll approve this or not, but they were talking about wanting to go down 6 West and Heber again, but I think the previous board kind of vetted that, and that's how we ended up with this.
well, that's what, as we discussed that the other day, we're trying to stay out of the way of UDOT. And if because of wetlands, they take that option C down 6, which anyway, you'd have to move the power line if it went that way. As I pointed out to you in the meeting last week.
Yeah.
And I guess that's even maybe one of the, you know, we're willing to look at this route, but with new information, we may have to revisit it and re-motion the project.
And there's such a long period of time before this all gets done, so if it's something that isn't already in motion, things can change,
Yeah.
I would think.
I mean, one of the things I have come to appreciate this last year is the enormous responsibility to consider as many options as possible and to consider as many points of view. I respect the previous board's work. I don't think I fully appreciated before the level of I don't know, information that's needed on this particular board. Moving forward, I personally have committed to myself that I will be getting a lot more outside expert help as I sit on this board. I'm here because I'm an elected official. I'm here because I'm a mayor of a town who participated in this project in 1909 when it was started. I'm not here because I'm an electrical expert. I'm not here because I'm a CPA. I'm not a legal expert. But there are those experts out there, and I believe we have a pretty enormous responsibility as one of the fastest growing counties in the country to look at how this growth is going to impact us and how we move forward with this. And what we're left with at the end of the day. So,
Can I ask a
I
question?
don't know.
I haven't been here, so I apologize if this has been discussed, but what happened with the advisory board that was going to be put in place last winter? I understand there was an issue maybe with the process of doing that, but why don't we start over and take a little time and do it right and propose an advisory board back to the governing board as just what Mayor Johnson was talking about, that there are people that would be willing to serve on an advisory board, and by all means we vet everybody, and the board, the governing board, has to feel comfortable with the people that are on that advisory board by all means, but why don't we start that process back up? Why don't we start doing that again and do it right and get an advisory board put in place that can only help bring some of this information to you guys that you don't have time to research on your own, so.
Yeah, I agree, I think it's definitely time for us to do that again. and
So it never happened?
Hopefully we can get,
Pardon me?
Nope.
It never did happen
Nope.
after that.
But the board would feel comfortable if the process were something that you elected to pursue, right? I mean, so
so how can
Yeah.
we move forward and know what everyone would be comfortable with? I guess that's the question.
Well, I think we got some advice from our legal counsel on how that board, the rules and the procedures of that board,
We've got that.
seek
some of that.
application and whatnot.
so the advice that was given, you're right, was how the board, or how that advisory board could function, but we really didn't come up with a process for selecting that board. So would it be as simple as we bring in applicants, this board reviews those applicants and makes a selection in a closed meeting?
Well, I think as a board, we've got to establish what the criteria is, what we want the board to do, what their duties and responsibilities are. They are an advisory, so they have no voting capacity on what happens, they just advise.
Right.
But I think you got at least one board meeting or two to put that all together, and then time to let people, I mean, it's like I said, I never was opposed to an advisory board properly constituted, but the one we were looking at was not.
So perhaps we could go ahead and put out a notice of
Like, you need to
accepting
get everything
applications?
established first before you put out a notice.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing? There's a fire district advisory board, there's a Parks and Rec advisory board that they are now starting to get applications on. They didn't have a bunch of criteria that needed to be, they just said who would like to serve, and on the application it says, what qualities and education do you possess that could bring something to the table of this advisory board? Let the applicants tell
That's what they have to offer.
you about themselves, but there's not a big long list on those advisory boards. They were just, please tell us about yourself and why you would be qualified to sit on this board.
We're going under the advice of our legal counsel on what I've mentioned.
Well, because not every, we can't say you need to be a CPA, we certainly
No.
don't appreciate a CPA, so it's hard to really put those criteria, except that they're willing to serve and attend meetings, and we don't know how many meetings, like maybe we'll be doing something intense and they'll have to meet more or less, so I guess, I'm fine to just put it out there, but you guys are the ones that, need to say what is exactly you want to see on there, so we can make sure that you're happy with it before we move forward. Because I don't want to do it and then get into it and then go, oh, that wasn't right. Like, I want to make sure that we get something in place that everyone's comfortable with. And we can for sure use the outline that we've got from our legal counsel, but that didn't include the selection process. There's nothing legal about the selection process.
Mayor Potter, I know it's the risk of this becoming a hearing. Are you taking questions?
Well, we're just killing a little bit of time, but we'll take another question and then we're gonna go back and finish out the agenda and we'll come back to the hearing.
Ken,
Yeah.
is that what legal counsel
I don't want to interrupt this discussion.
Oh, I got it in here somewhere.
No, go ahead.
Questions
I
on
was just
easement
looking.
rights.
Uh-huh.
So one of the
We need to
conditions in the
understand the
CUP
top of
process from the
Yeah.
county was to
Well,
bring back.
since we're killing time, we can see
An
what it is we
update
need
on
to agenda, I
easements.
guess.
Oh, before we
So-
get the, okay.
Yeah, from what I understand, the easements are largely, if not universally prescriptive along the route.
Right.
And there was some discussion early on about condemnation of property. And I think the understanding is Rocky Mountain Power, not operating in the valley, can't condemn unless HL&P gives them that capability. So I'm curious as to what further work has been done relative to the acquisition of rights to actually construct the line.
Do we have anything ready
Private
to
property.
respond on that, or is that something we're still?
Are you asking me if Rocky Mountain Power has an independent right to condemn property in the valley?
No, it's probably not that specific. Is there an update on acquisition? of
Have we just had an
property
update, like
rights?
the county had asked for that before they did the conditional use, do we?
That was a year ago. I'm just wondering if there's been any work. I know I haven't been contacted. I don't know if others have relative to property rights.
Part of our application to the county is that we willingly concede that one of the conditions of a conditional use would be the acquisition of proper land rights. So puts a extreme burden on ratepayers to go and buy property prior to the conditional use permit. And, that's what we're intending to go back to the Wasatch County Planning Commission with, is that right there, that remains a condition of the conditional use permit.
Couldn't you obtain agreements that aren't executed unless the CUP were approved? To have some understanding of cost to the board of acquiring property versus other options relative to the line? It doesn't sound like we've made any progress on what that's going to cost relative to other options.
Would it be fair to say, Jason, that there's been some discussion about chicken and egg, right? So, how do we move forward? So, that could be, right, to look at relative costs of easement acquisitions, in this now proposed route. Is there a process for doing that? What is it? I mean, we could discuss it offline and,
Yeah, I didn't mean
and
to
bring it
belabor
back.
it. It
Right,
sounds
yeah.
like,
We don't
I
have
have
to need
the
to
answer. I don't want
decide
to walk away with the wrong
Right.
impression.
And I don't think we
My
have
impression
the
is no
answer
work's
yet.
been done on easement rights.
At the end of the day, the price we pay is fair market value. I realize it's not an absolute number, but fair market value will get determined once we know where the line will go and what property needs to be acquired. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try and execute an option agreement before you know where the line's going to be, because you have to go through that whole process of determining what fair market value is for a given piece of property. So, paying an appraisal, getting a survey, whatever type of work needs done is potentially for naught. When our answer as far as what we end up paying what Rocky Mountain Power ends up paying is fair market value. It's just a question of putting a dollar figure.
But you may have a different practice than Rocky Mountain Power has had in the past.
And even before this meeting, none of these lines were certain until that vote was
Yeah, that's
taken,
a
so it makes sense to know.
Thank you, that's helpful.
I'm a member of the advisory board for the fire department,
Uh-huh.
and will tell you that of the 7 members, 2 to 5 are significant former fire chiefs or fire department executives. And if you were to then look at, say, the board of directors of a typical privately owned utility, like Duke Power, whatever, what you're going to find are that most of the people on the board have specific experience as executives running power companies. And then they usually have, you know, the token lawyer and maybe somebody connected to a Goldman Sachs or a bank that knows how to work the bonding issue. But what they really all seem to have are people who know a lot about running the kind of utility they're running. And well, I don't know that you have a sea of retired utility company executives living in the valley, but you might, because there are a lot of retired people here that come here, you know, to ski and cycle and play golf and enjoy our beautiful valley. And you just might be surprised that you've got a ton of serious expertise just waiting to help out.
Completely agree.
There
And
were-
I've talked to some of them, people have come forward.
There were a few, and they expressed an interest but weren't considered on the last proposal.
I'll fix
I
that.
don't.
Well,
Yeah, let's do it again.
That's right.
Do it again. I don't remember seeing an application that fit that, but
I don't either.
we can certainly do it again. And, you know, I think that one of the things that really struck me as I was perusing this history is just, I don't think anybody ever assumed we would get to this point, you know, that we would become fastest growing county in the country. I don't think, you know, and those are things that are now our decisions, right, based on that. So we talked a lot about this farming community at this high elevation that had such a short growing season, so we were a little slow to get our own power because it was hard to justify it. But look at us now, right?
Yeah.
We need to protect what we've got.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is jump to item number 6, General Manager's Report, and finish up those items before we have our 6 o'clock p.m. public hearing.
Okay, the IPA annual meeting. So IPA is a governing body of the IPP power plant located down by Delta, big 1,900 megawatt coal